It's time to get a lot of dislikes on today's video because today we list the 5 most overrated NFL teams going into the 2020 season, and these teams are overrated relative to what their odds are to win the upcoming Super Bowl. So some of these teams aren't necessarily bad. I might think they're gonna have a decent season, but I just don't think they should be rated as highly as they are. Can't wait to see the dislike button on today's video. Probably 1,000 dislikes, because if I think your team's overrated, you're gonna get mad. But let's talk about it. First team I think is one of the most overrated in football is the Indianapolis Colts. They have the 10th best odds to win the Super Bowl this year. They even have better odds than my Titans that made it a freaking AFC championship game last year, and I think they're going to be a better team this year. The Colts have better odds. They're a 7-9 team from a year ago. Why do they have such good odds? Probably simply because they signed Philip Rivers, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because Philip Rivers, his career is definitely dwindling down. I think this will probably be either his last year or the second to last year in his NFL career, and they're simply overhyped and overrated just because of him. I mean, he's coming from a 5-11 freaking Chargers team that had more offensive talent than what he has in Indianapolis. That's saying a lot. The Chargers actually might do better than they did last year this year, and that's without Philip Rivers. He threw way too many interceptions, way too many questionable decisions, and he's just not where he used to be. Like, he's just not as good as he once was. I mean, like I said, he's going from the offensive talent that he had in Los Angeles with Austin Eckler, with Melvin Gordon, with Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry. Now he's in Indianapolis with Marlon Mack. His only good receiver is T.Y. Hilton and freaking Jack Doyle at tight end. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're okay, but they're just not as good weapons than what he had in Los Angeles. So you're telling me he's supposed to be better with the Colts than he was with the Chargers? I don't think so. I think the talent in LA offensive-wise is a lot better than what they have in Indianapolis. Their defense is just mid-tier too, so like not going to be carried by their defense. The only big signing they made all offseason was Xavier Rhodes, who somehow made the Pro Bowl last year, and he's not even that good. He used to be good, but he had a horrible year last year, so unless he has a huge comeback year this year, like, I just think they're just so overrated just because the Philip Rivers hype. The Colts, if they do better than what they did last year, it's going to be just 8-8. Next most overrated team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers, and don't get me wrong, I think the Buccaneers are going to have a quality season and definitely have a shot to win their division and definitely make the playoffs. But they have the 5th highest odds at winning the Super Bowl this year, and that's just no. Look, they were a 7-9 team from a year ago. Yes, they got Tom Brady and Gronk, but that's it. So you're telling me a team that was 7-9 last year, very subpar, goes all the way to the 5th best team in the NFL just because they signed a 40-something-year-old quarterback in Gronk? Like, I just don't think that's okay. I think they're gonna make the playoffs, but they shouldn't be the 5th best team in the league going into the season. They have a lot to prove. I mean, like I said, I know they have Tom Brady. I think he's gonna do a fantastic job. I know they have a great wide receiver core in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and now with Gronkowski and O.J. Howard. So their offense, I don't think it's going to be a problem. They did sign LaShawn McCoy. What they're going to get out of him, I don't know. But the running game is still probably going to be suspect, and Tom Brady, as we all know, the last few years of his career did rely on a pretty heavy run game in New England. Obviously, he does not have the talent at running back that he had in New England in Tampa Bay this year, but it will be interesting to see how well Tom Brady does with the new targets that he has. Like, obviously, I think his production will go up, but the question is, where will it average out? Like, Tom Brady taking over and definitely not throwing the 30 interceptions that Jameis Winston did? Like, where is that going to average out? Because I know Tom Brady won't put up the yardage and touchdowns that Jameis Winston did. I don't think so. But at the same time, he won't throw as many interceptions. So he won't put his team, obviously, in the bad situations that Jameis Winston put his team in last year. But still, where does it average out? Like, is he going to get more production? And also, their defense is so bad. And also, they lost Gerald McCoy. Points per game wise, they had the 28th defense in the league last year. And I know a lot of that was because of Jameis Winston putting his team in bad situations. I mean, you're going to give up a lot of points when your offense turns the ball over through the air 30 times. So I understand that. They lost Gerald McCoy on top of that, and they had that statistic, and they were as good as they were defensively with Shaquille Barrett having a breakout crazy year. So is Shaquille Barrett really going to produce as much as he did last year this year? I don't quite think so. Once again, I'm not saying the Buccaneers are a bad team. I just don't think they should have the 5th best odds at a Super Bowl. Next, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. They have the 8th best odds to win a Super Bowl this year. And I think they should be more towards the middle of the pack. Like, once again, not a bad team. They did make the playoffs last year, but a big reason why they made the playoffs last year is just because their division was so bad. Like, literally, that division was just full of mid-tier average teams. I mean, you saw the records last year. You saw how they performed. The division is just not what it used to be. Like, I literally just think the Eagles are right now a mid-pack team. I like some of the moves they did make in the offseason. I like their draft pick. I like Jalen Reagor. I like the signing of Darius Slay. I also do like the Jalen Hurts pick. Also like the Javon Hargrave pick. But once again, dude, like, they're a 9-7 team from a year ago in a really, really bad division. They didn't make some groundbreaking offseason moves, and I do know a lot of that downfall last year was due to injuries. But just at the end of the day, it just boils down to the fact I just don't think they're good enough to hold that 8th ranking. Next team on the list, I have the Los Angeles Rams. And you might be asking, like, why do I have the Rams on here? Because they're still kind of middle of the pack in terms of rankings. I don't think the LA Rams should even be in the middle of the pack. I just don't think they're a good team, and that's really what it boils down to. I do think Jared Goff is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the entirety of the NFL. He has an incredible arm, just makes dumb decisions, and he's just an average quarterback. That's it. And the contract that he got from the Rams is going to be felt by that organization for the next 5-6 years unless they end up shipping him on eventually. They gave him way too much money that they could be given to other players elsewhere. They were a 9-7 team, kind of trending down at the end of last year, so I think they're actually worse than what the 9-7 record showed. And they got worse. They lost Todd Gurley, and yeah, I know Todd Gurley wasn't the Todd Gurley of old last year, but still, they lost him. They lost Brandon Cooks. So they're going to have to rely offensively on the passing game of an overrated Jared Goff when he already lost the receivers, with his top 2 targets only being Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. And outside of that, it's very mid-tier, because in the running game, all they have is rookie Cam Akers, who I think will be okay, and behind him it's just Darrell Henderson. So the offense is going to be worse than last year. The offensive line, in my opinion, is very below average, so I think the offense is just going to take a huge dip in 2020. And the defense, it's okay, but it's just not good enough to carry a team, in my opinion, like the Rams, with the offense that I think they're going to have in 2020. So I just think, honestly, if the Rams end up with a sub 500 record in 2020, would not be shocked in the slightest. And last but not least, gonna ruffle the most feathers, the Dallas Cowboys. And when you call the Dallas Cowboys overrated, that's when you get the most dislikes. Once again, I think the Cowboys are a good team. I think they have a great chance. I actually do think, when I do make my predictions, I'm gonna end up predicting them to win the NFC East. But they have the 6th highest odds to win the Super Bowl this year, and I just don't think they're that good. I think they're good, but they're not a top 6 team in the NFL, in my opinion. I think Dak Prescott is an average, maybe above average quarterback, but not a quarterback that deserves the amount of money that he wants. A quarterback that wants about as much money as Patrick Mahomes. No freaking way. I think the offense is good, though. Dak is okay. Zeke obviously is a very good running back, although his numbers are starting to dwindle down just a little bit, but he's still a top 5 running back, I believe. Good wide receiver core in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and they did lose Randall Cobb, but they replaced him with CeeDee Lamb, who I think is going to fit well in that offense. Not really much to the tight end position, and the offensive line also did lose Travis Frederick, so I do think that could actually be huge for that team to lose one of the best centers, if not the best center in the entirety of the National Football League. So a good offense, but I wouldn't be surprised because of that big loss of Travis Frederick if the offense takes a little bit of a step back, not big enough to really impact the team much, but a little bit of a step back. Now, the defense I actually do like a lot. They made some pretty bold moves in this offseason. They added Gerald McCoy, Don Terry Poe. They just, I think it was today when I'm recording this, added Everson Griffin. So they added a lot of veterans in that defensive line, but it's kind of like a thing I think of like the Cleveland Browns added these kind of veteran, kind of not ego-driven players, but just so many players at one positional unit on the defensive line adding all at once. It just really makes me question if they're going to be able to mesh well, but I do like the front 7. I really think the front 7 is extremely solid, and I also do like the addition of HaHa Clinton-Dix, but the cornerback position really does worry me for the Dallas Cowboys. They do have Chidobe Awuzie and a new rookie in Trevon Diggs, but behind them, like, there's not much there. So is that 1-2 punch good enough to carry that secondary? I don't think so. I mean, I'm not, once again, think the defense is going to be a top 10 defense in the league. I think the offense will be a top 15 offense for sure. But I just, with this team just meshing together, I just don't think this is the 6th best team in the league. A top 10 team, maybe, and it might be me nitpicking, calling them overrated, but at the same time, I just call it how I see it. So with that said, that in my opinion is 5 of the most overrated teams going into the 2020 NFL season. Now, I should have probably mentioned at the beginning that they weren't in any order, but at the same time, what does it freaking matter? The dislikes are going to be there regardless.